I made a terrible mistake. Prince Harry's voice cracked as he gripped the podium, knuckles white against the polished wood. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. 500 journalists fell silent. A coffee cup shattered somewhere in the back of the room. Harry raised his eyes, finding his brother William's face in the crowd. Their gazes locked, William's expression a perfect mask of royal composure, betrayed only by a single pulse throbbing at his temple. 3 security guards shifted nervously, hands moving imperceptibly toward concealed weapons. The mistake wasn't what you think, Harry continued, his voice strengthening as a dangerous smile played at the corners of his mouth. My mistake was believing I could ever truly leave. Time seemed to stop. Then pandemonium erupted as reporters leapt to their feet, shouting questions. Cameras flashed like lightning in a storm. In the chaos, no one noticed the barely perceptible nod exchanged between the brothers, or the digital signal transmitted from Harry's watch that triggered security protocols in 3 countries simultaneously. Behind closed doors, Operation Royal Reckoning had begun. What the world was about to discover would shatter the monarchy's 1,000-year foundations, or save it from the abyss. And it had all started 6 months earlier with a single encrypted file. 6 months earlier, Harry had been jolted awake at 3 a.m. by his phone's urgent ping. Still half asleep, he'd stumbled to his desk where the device glowed ominously in the darkness of his California study. The sender: unknown. Subject line: the truth about Operation Spare. His thumb hesitated over the attachment. Another tabloid trap? A virus? But something, instinct perhaps, made him click. His blood turned to ice as the documents loaded. Surveillance photos of Meghan and Archie playing in what they'd thought was their private garden. Transcripts of conversations he'd had behind closed doors. A detailed 50-page playbook labeled Operation Spare Containment, all bearing the royal seal. Subject increasingly unstable, one memo read. Deploy mental health narrative immediately. Public must view him as damaged, not dangerous. Another document, highlighted in red: American wife remains primary vulnerability. Focus media assets on emphasizing her influence. Comparison to Wallace Simpson effective with older demographic. Harry scrolled frantically until he reached the final page, and froze. There, under the operational approval, was William's signature. His brother had signed off on his destruction. The phone slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor. The sound brought Meghan running. What's happened? She asked, taking in his ashen face. Harry couldn't speak. He simply turned the screen toward her. By dawn, he'd made just one call, to his cousin Eugenie, the only person he still trusted inside palace walls. Is this real? He demanded, voice raw. Her long silence was deafening. Not everything, she finally whispered. William fought against the surveillance. But yes, there's a coordinated campaign. Harry, they see you as an existential threat. The machine is just protecting itself. 24 hours later, every major newspaper carried the same headline: Prince Harry announces new legal action against British tabloids. The palace breathed a collective sigh of relief, believing his anger remained focused on the press. None of them realized they were now the targets. What the royal family had forgotten, or perhaps never fully appreciated, was Harry's military training. 10 years in the armed forces, including 2 combat tours in Afghanistan, hadn't merely taught him discipline. It had forged him into someone who thrived under extreme pressure, who could read battlefields both literal and figurative. In the converted wine cellar of his Montecito mansion, Harry had established his command center. Meghan had jokingly dubbed it his war room, before realizing the term was more accurate than she'd intended. They've always seen me as the spare part, Harry told her one night, standing before a wall displaying a complex network of connections. Red strings linked photos of media executives to senior palace officials. Financial transactions glowed on a digital screen. The expendable one. Meghan studied the elaborate operation with growing concern. This is what you were doing all those nights you couldn't sleep? Harry nodded, eyes never leaving the board. In combat, we had a saying: know your enemy better than they know themselves. He tapped a photo of a man she didn't recognize. This media baron has breakfast with the palace communications director every Tuesday. This MP chairs the Intelligence Oversight Committee, but vacations on this oligarch's yacht. This is bigger than family drama, she whispered. It always was, Harry replied, revealing the true depth of his strategy for the first time. They've been watching us, but I've been watching them for longer. What none of them realized was that Harry's real secret weapon wasn't his military experience. It was the network of fiercely loyal former service members who'd fought alongside him. Men and women who valued the prince who'd bled in the same sand over any royal title. Operatives who now occupied key positions throughout British society and international intelligence communities. His brother might command the palace guard, but Harry commanded something far more valuable. A shadow network of people who owed their lives to the prince who'd never left a man behind. 3 months into Harry's counter-operation, what had begun as a personal quest for truth transformed into something far more consequential when his secure server was breached. Sensitive documents disappeared, including evidence implicating several high-ranking government officials in the surveillance operation against him. The next day, a junior palace communications officer was found dead in London's Primrose Hill, officially ruled a suicide. But Harry recognized the name immediately. She had been one of his confidential sources, someone who had become increasingly nervous about the information she was providing. That same afternoon, Harry received a text from an unknown number. "Stop now or there will be more consequences. This is bigger than your family feud." Harry realized with chilling clarity that what he had uncovered went beyond royal family politics. The systematic surveillance operation against him appeared to be connected to something larger, a network of influence extending from tabloid newsrooms into government intelligence agencies and corporate boardrooms. When documents from Harry's server began appearing in redacted form on an anonymous whistleblower site, international attention exploded. The partial revelations hinted at constitutional overreach and potential illegal surveillance, authorized at the highest levels of British government. Overnight, Harry's personal grievance had escalated into a potential constitutional crisis. The monarchy itself, the institution his family had served for generations, was suddenly vulnerable. "This isn't what I wanted," Harry confessed to Meghan as they watched the news coverage. "I wanted accountability, not destruction." "Maybe it's too late to turn back," she suggested quietly. Harry shook his head. "There's always a choice." The public confession was phase 1, appearing to surrender, to admit defeat. Harry's statement about leaving being a mistake was deliberately ambiguous. The world assumed he regretted stepping away from royal duties. Only Harry knew he was referring to leaving behind unfinished business. Phase 2 involved a carefully negotiated temporary return to Britain, ostensibly for charitable work and family reconciliation. Behind closed doors, Harry had already reached out to his father with a partial revelation of what he knew. "I don't want to destroy anything," he told King Charles during a secure video call. "I want reform, transparency, and those responsible held accountable." His father's response had surprised him. "The institution is larger than any individual, Henry. Even me. Be careful how you proceed." For the first time, Harry wondered if his father might be as trapped as he had once felt. The most delicate part of his strategy involved his brother. Public reconciliation would provide Harry the access and credibility he needed while private negotiations continued. But the personal cost was high, pretending to forgive someone he wasn't sure he could ever trust again. "It's not about forgiveness yet," he explained to Meghan before departing for London. "It's about creating space for truth. Without truth, forgiveness is just another performance." What Harry couldn't know was that his brother had been conducting an investigation of his own, one that had led William to question the very advisors he had once trusted implicitly. The charity gala at Kensington Palace became the setting for the most carefully choreographed confrontation in royal history. Every major news outlet covered the event, broadcasting the image of the reunited brothers to millions worldwide. Celebrities and dignitaries mingled, oblivious to the fact that they were standing on a battlefield. Harry felt the weight of his brother's gaze across the room but maintained his focus. Tonight wasn't about reconciliation. It was about justice. At precisely 9:30 p.m., Harry took the stage. The crowd fell silent. "When I was in Afghanistan," he began, departing from his prepared remarks, "I learned that the most dangerous moment isn't when you're under direct fire. It's when you think you're safe." William's head snapped up, recognizing the coded message. "Family has always been our foundation," Harry continued, making direct eye contact with his brother. "Even when we disagree. Even when we fail each other." Those 16 words, seemingly innocuous, triggered a cascade of events across London. In an MI6 safe house, international cybersecurity experts granted emergency authority by 3 allied intelligence agencies initiated the takedown of the surveillance network. In the financial district, forensic accountants froze accounts linked to the shadow organization. At Scotland Yard, sealed warrants were opened. Harry maintained his calm smile, speaking of mental health and reconciliation, as his phone vibrated in his pocket with confirmation. Operation Truth Crown active. He'd barely finished his speech when palace security approached, whispering urgently in his ear. Moments later, He was escorted to a secure room where William waited, his face ashen. The king arrived minutes later. Security detail doubled. 17 arrests already, Charles said without preamble, including 3 people I've trusted for decades. William stood rigid, documents clutched in his hand. You knew, he said to Harry, voice tight with emotion. How long have you known? About the surveillance? Months, Harry replied, maintaining his composure. About who was really orchestrating it? That I just discovered last week. He placed a flash drive on the table. The same cartel that hounded our mother. The same network that's been blackmailing government officials and manipulating public opinion for generations. The room temperature seemed to drop as William slid a file across the table. His own investigation had uncovered a parallel operation targeting the palace itself. What they had believed was family betrayal was something far more sinister. I never signed anything, William said, voice breaking. That signature was forged. Then who? Harry began. The door burst open. Armed security rushed in. Sir, we need to move you immediately, the lead officer told Charles. We've discovered listening devices throughout the palace. This situation is now classified as a national security emergency. As they were escorted through hidden corridors beneath the palace, Harry caught his brother's eye. For the first time in years, they understood each other perfectly. 2 weeks later, as dawn broke over London, armored vehicles quietly surrounded the headquarters of 3 major media companies. Simultaneously, digital security teams executed search warrants at over a dozen locations. By breakfast, the operation that had monitored Harry for years was being dismantled piece by piece. At Buckingham Palace, the royal family prepared for the most consequential moment in modern monarchy. The king's advisors had begged him to distance himself from what they called Harry's vendetta. Charles had listened politely, then dismissed them all. Some fires, he told them, need to burn. At precisely noon, the brothers appeared not before the traditional royal backdrop, but against the stark emblem of an independent judicial commission. They stood shoulder to shoulder, faces grim but resolved. The king sat in the front row, a visible statement of support that sent shockwaves through the establishment. Today, Harry began, his voice steady, we stand before you not as princes but as citizens committed to truth. William stepped forward. For generations, our family has been portrayed as being above the law while simultaneously being subjected to calculated manipulation. That contradiction ends today. Harry removed a document from his pocket. We are announcing the formation of an independent royal commission on privacy, press ethics, and constitutional governance. Camera flashes exploded as William added, with full cooperation from the Crown and unprecedented access to palace operations. But the true bombshell came next. 17 individuals have been arrested this morning, Harry announced, charged with crimes including illegal surveillance, blackmail of public officials, and conspiracy against democratic institutions. The list of names he read included media executives, former palace officials, and several prominent politicians. Some in the audience gasped audibly when they heard who had been involved. The second shock came when evidence revealed that the conspiracy had maintained psychological profiles on all senior royals, information used to manipulate family members against each other for decades. What we initially believed was family betrayal, William explained, his voice tight with controlled anger, was in fact a sophisticated operation designed to ensure we remain divided. As the brothers closed their presentation, a journalist called out, Prince Harry, do you still believe leaving was a mistake? Harry met his brother's eyes briefly before turning to the cameras. My mistake wasn't leaving, he said clearly. My mistake was believing I could ever truly leave. He gestured to the palace behind him. This institution isn't just buildings and titles. It's an idea. One worth fighting for. Worth reforming. Sometimes you have to step outside the system to truly see it. And sometimes, he added with the ghost of a smile, you have to come back to change it. In the front row, King Charles nodded almost imperceptibly. The institution they'd both been raised to serve was still standing, but transformed, not by destruction but by the courage to face its darkest shadows and emerge stronger, more transparent, more worthy of the loyalty it had always commanded.